Welcome to episode 38 of Anchored in Education. I'm E. Scott England, and Anchored in Education is the podcast dedicated to all things education. Educators across the world routinely engage in conversations surrounding fundamentals, concepts, and new ideas that improve this great profession. Sometimes we agree, other times we disagree. But at the end of the day, we are all anchored in education. It seems odd to say, but sometimes we need people to remind us that we are in charge of ourselves. Sean Acor says simply that forming the habit of being thankful for 3 things every day for 21 days will change how we perceive happiness. This must be how I was instantly drawn to my guest today. A few months ago, I was online when I came across Kyle Greene. We connected online and began a conversation. Immediately, he had enthusiasm that was infectious. His message was telling people that what we imagine is possible for ourselves can actually become possible once we shift our thinking to believe it to be true. A change in mentality, so to speak. At least, that is how Kyle views it. He authored the book The Mentality Changer, a journey to help change how you once thought about you. I got the book and became engrossed right away. He calls his chapters journeys, and journeys they are. It was an easy read that inspired thought and reflection. I would describe the book more or give more background information about Kyle, but I think it is best to hear from him. I think we'll be inspired by the end of this episode. Kyle, welcome to Anchored in Education.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it is my pleasure, and we're just going to jump right into it here. Now you're not an educator by profession, but you are most definitely still anchored in education through, of course, the raising of your own children, working with underprivileged children, and coaching AAU basketball. So you're actually very open with your experiences in school, one of which is becoming a father at 16. So can you tell us a little bit more about you and your story?
All right. So, like you said, I had a daughter when I was 16 in the 10th grade. I found out that I was actually having a daughter when I was in the 9th grade. It takes 9 months, 3 tricycles. So once I found out that I was about to have a daughter, like any 16-year-old, I was nervous. I was scared. I was frightened.
Sure.
I originally told her mom that it wasn't me. Like, couldn't have been me. She was like, Kyle, I was with nobody else. So after after me trying to play the oblivious role, and then when reality set in, man, I just really kind of said that, man, I'm gonna try to be the best dad that I could possibly be. Nobody writes a manual, nobody gives you any directions on how to be a dad, especially a teenage father. But I think I did the best that I could under those circumstances. So I had a daughter at 16. My mother was on drugs my whole life. So my mom went there when I was like a kid myself. So I never really had anyone in the home who was really there to give me any type of structure that I needed. Nobody was there to really hold me accountable when I came home from school to do my homework. So my mom was on drugs. My dad, he lived in the next town over. So I never had the luxury of having my father in the home. I didn't have really that discipline that most boys need to have from their father.
Right.
I would spend summers with him, but you can't really discipline me in 30 to 60 days. That just wasn't possible. I was educated in one of the worst school districts in South Carolina. Jasper County is one of the worst school districts in our state, especially when I was in school. We ranked in the bottom of the state in academics, students reading on their respective grade levels, and nobody was going off to college after graduating from high school. So I had all of those situations like going, I guess you can kind of say, against me. I was raised by my elderly grandmother. My grandmother had 18 kids. She raised me and my sister. She was married twice. So she kind of did as much as she could with very little, formal education. But she taught me a lot of life lessons. And I truly believe that made all of the difference in my life today. So not being in education and going to school to get a degree in education, I knew what I kind of went through my educational journey, so I knew how I wanted to really impact students being a motivational speaker and being an author. So I kind of took my life experiences to shape who I was, to help really shape who students can become in their life today.
And part of how you do that is through the book, The Mentality Changer. And that's what we're talking about today. And so this is a book that you authored, I guess we could say, to help people change how they once thought about themselves. And your chapters, or I love it, you call them journeys.
Right.
They're designed to be easily read, one per day. In fact, I think that is even a recommendation that you give at the beginning of your book. Now, you've also included a review questions and a spot for reflection at the end of each journey. So, describe the goal that you have for anyone who reads this book.
So when originally, man, it's so crazy, right? When I was growing up, I could not read. Um, how we were being taught in school, like they give you a paragraph, and every person down the road would read the next paragraph. I don't know if they really still teach like that now, but I graduated in 2000, so it wasn't that long ago. But I would always get sick all of a sudden. I would always have to go to the restroom, and it was because I knew I couldn't read, and I didn't want my friends to pick on me. I'm assuming that was bullying then when I was in school. Bullying seems so prevalent now. I have no idea if I got bullied in school, but I used to get teased by having big ears.
Sure.
Um, so maybe kind of along the same lines. But so I couldn't read really in school, and it's so crazy. Not to bring God in, but he got like the craziest sense of humor because he would take a boy who could not read, and then he would turn him into an author. And I knew when I started to figure out how to read and how to the suffix and the prefix of a word and break down a word. Once I figured that out and I started reading, I said, man, I want to read books. um, I like books that doesn't have long chapters, because if it's a thick book and it has long chapters, I kind of get, I don't know if I get bored by it or if I get tired when I'm reading it, and then I'm flipping to see when the next chapter is going to
Sure.
begin. So I kind of wanted to have a book in a way in which I like reading books. So short, sweet journeys, and I call them journeys for a reason, because I believe journeys help take you to a destination. So at the end of every journey that you read in the Mentality Changer, hopefully it helped to get you to another destination in your life mentally. And so at the end, I ask you questions throughout the book, and it allows you, and I call it a self-reflection, because I want you to kind of self-reflect back on what you read. So once you read a journey, you have a section where you can write down notes of what you read, and then you can ask questions, and then you can kind of question yourself about what you just read. So, for example, on one journey, it talks about the crab in the barrel mentality. And I say, are you the crab pulling down your friend that's trying to get to that next level? Or are you the barrel? The barrel is something that confines the crab to keep the crabs in. Are you that friend? Maybe a friend said, man, I want to be the next big actor or actress, and I got to go to California to do it. And are you that barrel saying, no, you need to just stay here? So, I ask you that, are you the crab or you the barrel? So then you start self-reflecting, like, wow, maybe I am that person. And if I am that person, what can I do to change? So the book gives you nice, short, quick, um, easy reads. It gives you a section to reflect on, and then it asks you questions, so then you can have a self reflection on what you just read. And people seem to love it, man. I mean, I have students. I go to school. Students, they ask the administration, how can every student get a book? The students want them. They love them. They send me essays. I throw little pizza parties for students who at least send me back 75% of the essays. That's something that I give back to the students for just reading it and then writing an essay. Adults love it. Corporate America love it. Everybody really want to have the right mindset, because in order for you to really change anything or anyone in life, you first got to change the way you think. And once you change the way you think, man, that's where the power happens. That's where the magic happens in someone's life.
You're absolutely right. And you can add to that list that you gave that this guy likes it. And no, it really is. And I'm right there with you that there's several times whenever I pick up a book, the first thing I do is I'll flip to the table of contents and I'll see, okay, chapter 1 it goes this long, chapter 2 goes this long, and
Right.
with
Right.
with the mentality changer. So I read that you could do a journey per day, and I'll throw the warning out there to the people that you will want to read more than one journey per day, and I
Like that.
that's okay as well. But
Right.
it's one of those that it pulls you in and it gets you thinking. And so one of the journeys we start talking about three types of people, and
Right.
that's the good talker, the go getter, and the bird watcher. So
Right.
first off, can you briefly explain these three types of people for our listeners? And second, what are some what are some keys to becoming the type we want to be?
So I want people to always understand. So it's not a necessarily a wrong. It's not a wrong answer. In you being whatever type of person, right? So you can't help like who you are, but you can change who you are into becoming a better person. So I say, if you're the good talker, that's that friend. That friend who always comes around and they tell you, "Yo, man, I'm gonna start this company. I'm gonna make $1 million my first year, and by year 10, I'm gonna be making $10 million. Then I'm gonna go public, and then I'm gonna be $1 billion company. And I'm gonna sell it to Facebook." And, so they talk really good. They almost get you convinced um, that they gonna do it just by what they say that they're gonna do. Oftentimes people talk a good game, and they actions never follow up what they say. So are you a good talker? Do you just talk a good talk, or do you actually walk what you talk? And then number two, is the go-getter, and the go-getter is the person who make things happen. The go-getter to me are people that make the world go round. The go-getter are people who don't just talk it, and most times they don't even tell you what they about to do. They burn the midnight oil. They stay up 2-3 o'clock in the morning working on that business plan. They buy a domain name. They get business cards made up. They find a graphic design to create them a logo. Like, they make things happen. They go get it. And then you got the bird watcher. That's the person who sits on the sideline that they call these people water cooler quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So I'm a big USC Gamecock fan. I love USC football, and when we lost in Missouri, and we were upset, and everybody had fire must champ. Everybody had the the right things, or what they thought were the right thing to do. But oftentimes, all they do is just sit in the stands, and all they do is just talk. A bird, all it does is just sit on the power lines, and all it does is chirp when you pass by. It's not doing anything but watching you. And so, are you that person? Are you that person that just sits on the sidelines and you talk and you criticize everything? Are you that go getter that make things happen? Or are you just a talker? You say you're gonna do X, Y, and Z, and nothing ever gets done. So it's three types of people in the world to me: people that talk a good talk, people that walk what they talk, and then other people that just watch from the sidelines. Which one are you?
And I think it's possible. And what I got from your book is that, a lot of it is becoming aware of where you're at and what type you are. And then if that's not where you want to be, then what can you do to get to the type that you want to be? Is that the direction that you were going for?
That's exactly like, so you just said, right? You said, in the book in the beginning, I give you some instructions. I said, yeah, read one journey a day, reflect, then read the next one. But I had this one friend, and she recently messaged me. She said, "Kyle, I just bought your book because I wanted to support you." And she said, that was it. I just wanted to support you. Then she said, a meeting got canceled, and I started reading your book, and I found myself immersed in it for 6 hours, just reading and asking questions. So that's how you kind of say, that's why you said, like, once you start reading it, you want to go to the next chapter and be like, or the next journey, just to figure out, like, so what is he going to talk about, or what is he going to challenge me next? So in that section, I challenge you to figure out which person you are, and then what can you do to get to that next level.
Absolutely. And so you're candid in one of your journeys, explaining to readers that you didn't grow up with much, and you've talked about this a little bit, and really that could have bothered you, but your mindset didn't let it. You go on to say that when you're coaching AAU games, you can tell the outcome before the game even begins. And again, it's because of mindset. So, can this be applied in school settings as well as when students arrive saying, well, I'm not a math person or I can't read that well?
Right. So you already defeat yourself when you come in with that mindset and with that way of thinking. And so the reason that when I said being an AAU coach, I can look at an opposing team. I can look at you 30 minutes before the game and I can tell the outcome of the game. So if I see your kids running around, playing in the gym, eating a hot dog 30 minutes before the game, drinking some sodas, eating some Snickers, and then, I'm really kind of, I'm like a dictator when it comes to my team, especially before the game, because I understand that 90% of the game is mental and 10% is physical. It's just Michael Jordan. He was always more mentally locked in before games. And when he played, you could see that in his play. So I just feel like if you already come in with a defeated mindset and you telling yourself that you can't do something or you can't do anything or I'm going to fail this test because I always fail tests or I'm going to fail this test or I'm not going to do good because nobody in my family ever does good. Like once you kind of get out that mindset and say, you know what, maybe I can be the first. Maybe I'll be the first person in my family to graduate from high school and go off to college. Maybe I'll be the first person in my family to graduate from college. Maybe I'll be the first person in my family to start a business. Maybe I'll be the first person in my family to write a book. And if you have that type of mindset and you have that type of like grind about yourself, then you can like then affect everybody else that's connected to you. So then now you can be a trendsetter in your family. So I'm really big on and it's not necessarily psyching yourself out. And if you have to psych yourself out, I guess you can say that too. But then just going into the situation, having a winning mindset, and that's in every facet of your life. I don't care if sports or just in life in general.
And so I've got to pull on something that you just said there. You talked about the grind, and so let's just throw this in there. You've got a journey that is talking about the grind is greater than the struggle. So you begin with your grind should always exceed your struggle. Talk about that a little bit.
So a few years back, right, I would write a post every single day. Every single day, I would write a post, and then I would post it on Facebook, and I would write a post in the morning while I'm going to work, and I would say something like, "You can do whatever you believe in. You can do whatever you can as long as you believe in yourself." And then I would press send, and people would like it and comment. Some would get shared, and then I would in the afternoon at 5 o'clock, I would say something like, "You just won your day. Be ready to win your day on tomorrow." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and
Yeah.
then I would share that, and then people would like it, comment, and share those type um, posts that I would write. And then one day, man, people be saying like, when God talked to you, I don't know if you hear His voice or what, because I'm not super spiritual. I go to church. Grandmother raised me in the church, but I can't quote scripture, anything. But I just heard something say, "Your grind should always exceed your struggle," and then it said, "Don't post it." And I sat on that for months. And then one day something spoke to me again. And it was like, "Yo, that's gonna now bless you because you've been blessing so many people." So it was like, put it on a T-shirt. So that was my first T-shirt. Your grind should always exceed your struggle. So when I started going into schools to go speak, I would have students come up to me and they would say, "Man, can I get one of your shirts?" And while you were speaking, your words on your shirt really resonated. So that's why when I go speak now, I wear typically my shirts, or I wear a shirt that has a meaning. Because sometimes students, if you go in there in a suit and tie, right, they gonna shut off on you. They not even gonna take you serious because they like, "Yo, who is this preacher coming in here trying to talk to me?" So I look like them. I might wear some Jordans, some off whites, some jeans, a T-shirt. Your grind succeeds your struggle, and then it reaches the students who might not necessarily be paying attention to my words originally, but they say, "Man, you know what? Something about his shirt, something about him connects with me," and I'm able to connect, man, with white students, black students, kids on both sides of the track, kids who come from dual families, kids who come from single families, kids who, like me, were raised by their grandmother. And I get them to understand that I don't care what your struggle look like. Nobody struggled more than me. Mom was on drugs. Dad wasn't there. Had a daughter, raised by my grandmother. At one of the worst, like I struggled. I had roaches in my house growing up. I saw roaches every single night when I went to bed. Like I struggled. But in order for me to get to that next level, I had to get on my grind. And if you're struggling in any facet of your life, I don't care if it's math, reading, science, social studies. I don't care if it's you didn't make the basketball team because you wasn't good enough and you couldn't make left hand layups. Get on your grind. I need for you to do 100 left hand layups every single day. Um, and I don't tell kids. Maybe I say if you're struggling in reading, right? I would be naive to tell you not to play Fortnite when you got home. Like my son does it, but he's really smart. But what I will say is sacrifice 1 hour out the day. When you get home, just give me 1 hour. 1 hour. I'm not telling you not to play it at all. Give me 1 hour and don't play Fortnite and then just focus on whatever area you're struggling in. I need you to get on that grind. And then I have kids, man, they're students, they respond back to me on Instagram. They'll DM me a message. They say, yo, Mr. Kyle, man, I was a C student. I did what you told me and now I'm a B student. Like, and that's what it's all about for me.
Oh, sure. Uh, you mentioned this earlier. I'm gonna come back to this journey though that you talked about. It's that the crab in the reference of not being the crab or the barrel. And
Right.
again, I'm gonna just quickly sum up. So when crabs are in a barrel, they'll do anything possible to try to pull down a crab that's trying to get out. So as I'm reading this journey, I immediately thought of those new teachers with fresh ideas, but the veteran teachers are pulling them back down because, well, what we hear a lot is, well, that's not the way we do it around here. So,
Right.
what can we tell these brave teachers that's trying to escape from the so-called teaching barrel?
So you know what? I'm glad I'm glad you said that because just like what you said, right? A fresh teacher, they come in year one, even if they still on a honeymoon phase. So maybe year three, maybe they still got some juice in them where they super excited. This is a new adventure, or they fresh out of college. And then, like you said, they have the veteran teacher who's kind of been anchored in the system 20, 25 years, and most of them are afraid to change, and most of them really kind of want to stick to the status quo because they're like, we've been doing it this way, and I've been here for 20 years, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that I do see when I go into schools today, that these students that we have now are different than the students that we had 20 years ago, and if you don't evolve and meet them where they are, you're going to lose them in where you're trying to take them in their life. And most students, they don't really see the potential that you see in a student. When I go speak at educator conferences or I speak at teacher retreats, I always share with educators the easiest thing that you can do is to see a potential in a student. That's so you say, oh man, Susie, she's gonna be something one day. Jason, oh my gosh, she's gonna be something one day. That's the easiest thing to do for a teacher to do, an educator. But the hardest thing to do is to get a student to not only see their potential, but to get a student to tap into their potential for greatness. And oftentimes, young teachers come in with a different perspective. They they have a different outlook on what can potentially work. And as long as you stay doing the status quo, and as long as you continue to be content with where you are, you will never really move students from their comfort zone. You'll never really get them uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
because most people don't like to get uncomfortable. Most people, even adults, we want to do what we've been doing. It feels good. It's natural. But growth only happens in our life when we get uncomfortable. Once you remove fear out of the equation, once you say, you know what, I'm going to try this, and if it works, it was a success, and if it fails, I'm not going to not try again, because as long as you try, man, you constantly growing, you constantly evolving. And I think young teachers need to have that mindset of, if I have to go against the status quo, and even if I fail, I will not stop trying, because as long as I'm trying, as long as I'm making some type of effort. So that's kind of my whole idea behind that whole crab in the barrel mentality when you in relation to young teachers versus older, more veteran teachers. And again, we need both of them, but you just got to find that perfect balance.
That
Um,
that's a solid piece of advice, and I hope that our novice teachers are listening, and it's encouraging to hear it, because I know inside education that's what we're saying, but it's nice to have the perspective outside too, saying, this is what you need to be doing, and to recognize that we do need those veteran teachers, because that's our experience in our schools, and that's where that if we need to listen to our veteran teachers, because if we try to make too many changes, eventually we come around where they're like, well, we did this at some point and here's how it went. So, we don't want to go down that same path.
right.
We can make adjustments, but you don't want to take the excitement out of a new teacher coming in.
Right. And they create their creativity and their passion, because that's the when most teachers hate their job and they just show up for a paycheck, it's usually because they lost their creativity and they no longer have their passion. And if they're not passionate about something, and that's not just with a teacher, that's with anybody. If you're an administrator and you don't like being in administration no more, you dread your job, and you never want to lose that passion and that creativity in anything that you do, especially education, because students feed off your passion. They feed off your energy and your excitement.
True story. Absolutely true story. So, hey, before we go, uh, at the end of the Mentality Changer, you had a couple bonus journeys, and one is dedicated to parents. But I think we could easily substitute the word teacher for parents today.
Right.
And you mentioned that teaching children today can at times be tough. So, as a father myself, I'll go ahead and echo that's absolutely true. But as adults, as teachers, we must get tougher. And so the most solid piece of advice I found was on page 171, when you point out the greatest thing you can do for a student is simply spend time with them, show them you care, and invest in them. So, what is one last piece of advice you can leave for educators who spend today teaching our future?
Man, I will say this. A teacher once taught President Donald Trump. A teacher once taught President Barack Obama. A teacher once taught Oprah Winfrey. A teacher once taught Mark Zuckerberg. Like all of those great people who make the decisions that affect what happens in our country. All of those great people who created these billion-dollar companies. A teacher once taught Bill Gates. A teacher once taught um, all of these great people who make meaningful advances in today's society. A teacher once had their hand in their life. Many times when you ask these people, what name somebody who impacted your life the most, they'll think back, and some of them may recall a teacher who made a difference in their life in the second, the third grade, maybe in high school, maybe a professor that they had in college. And my whole thing is, if you never forget that, because sometimes, man, teachers, they'll never get that appreciation. Maybe a teacher who taught President Trump or President Obama, maybe they never got a thank you from them. Maybe the impact that they had on their life, maybe they have no idea that the significant toll that they played on their life. And as teachers, is if they remember that their hands are like on the plow for the next generation, that future generations will have their fingerprints on the decisions that they make, on who they become as a person. As long as teachers know that they make a difference, and they many times are the difference in the life of people, it'll take them a very long way. So I never want teachers to feel like that they're just doing the job just to get a check, that they just doing the job just to make time pass, because their role in society is so significant that many times, man, it kind of just get lost in the hustle and bustle of life. I just want teachers to know, man, your voice is important. Your actions are needed. You are valuable, and you are a big reason why we live in one of the greatest countries in the world. And it's because of our teachers.
It's an inspiring piece of advice right there. And I for one, I appreciate it, and I thank you for recognizing. But you're right, educators out there, the listeners that I have, they have a valuable role, and a lot of times we undersell or we beat ourselves up. But you're absolutely right. So I appreciate those words today.
And I'm telling you, some of my best friends on Facebook today are my teachers that I had in middle and high school. Some of my best friends that I still keep in contact with today, and it's because of Facebook. It's my teachers, and so I really thank you, and I really appreciate you for having me.
Hey, not a problem. And I'm going to, on my website, going to link to your website and to this book so my listeners can pick it up today, order it, and they can get started on their journey as well. So, Kyle, thank you so much for joining us on Anchored in Education today.
Thank you for having me.
We needed to hear what Kyle was saying today, and you can find him on Twitter. Search @KyleSpeaks_. You can also go to my website, escotengland.com, to read more about him and find a link to his website and book. Now, don't forget to stay in the know with Anchored in Education by subscribing to this podcast on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. I believe one thing that strengthens me as an educator is when I take the time to read, talk, and listen to someone with an outside perspective talk about education. Because after all, we have Kyle Greenes in our classrooms right now. I'm thankful that Kyle is comfortable talking about his childhood growing up. I'm even more thankful for what he has been able to do in his life. I would argue that education right now is simultaneously going through both the highest and the lowest times. We see the great accomplishments and awards being bestowed on schools while legislators at state and federal levels talk about how our schools are failing. It is taxing to listen to, but listen to some journeys from Kyle's book. Winning is a mindset, triumph, success, victory. Unlock your greatness. When life bends, expect a breakthrough. Educators, listen up. What you're doing is making an impact. You may not see it, but it is there. You need to change your mindset, and you need to change it now. You need to begin thinking differently about you. You were put where you are for a reason. Make something magical happen. And don't forget that at the end of the day, we are all anchored in education.